Welcome, everyone. This is the Africa ELTA and EVE Female Leadership Mentoring Program final presentations, and this is the second part of the presentations. We started last week with the first part, and just to give you a brief idea about this program started 3 months ago. The goal of the program is to mentor and support classroom teachers from Africa, especially female teachers, to share their experiences and also acquire presentation skills and proposal writing skills to apply and submit proposals for conferences. Our classroom teachers who joined this program received mentoring for 3 months by EVE mentors, and also they were required to submit conference proposals before they go live tonight for their final presentations. We have 8 classroom teachers who successfully completed the program, and we have 4 presenting tonight. We had already 4 presenting last week, and we are looking forward to their presentations. Before we move ahead, I would like to maybe invite Fiona from EVE to say a few words about the program from the EVE side, but just let me make sure, Fiona, that you have access to the mic. Now you can speak.
Hello, good evening. I don't really know what to say. It's just been a thoroughly positive experience working with these ladies. I've said this before to the ladies involved in the program. There's no real distinction between mentors and mentees. We're all mentors and we're all mentees on this program. I think we've all learned a huge amount from each other. I've seen some of the presentations before. I know that everybody's going to really benefit from watching this evening's presentations. Some really fascinating topics. So just to wish the very best of luck to the brave ladies who are presenting this evening. I know you're a little bit nervous, but you've got absolutely no need to be. We've seen you before. You're really good. Just, relax, go for it, and you'll be brilliant. So very best of luck.
Thank you, Fiona. And our first presenter tonight is Hadiza. Hadiza is an English teacher in a secondary school in Niger. She has been teaching for 15 years, and she's presenting tonight about the ICT use in EFL teaching in Miami secondary schools. Hadiza, just let me make sure your mic is on. I think it is. Okay. The floor is yours, Hadiza. You have 15 minutes for the presentation and then 5 minutes for questions and answers.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me first thank you all for joining. My name is Hadiza, and I'm going to share with you a study I conducted on ICT in EFL teaching in Niamey secondary schools. Next. Here is the skeleton of my presentation. I'm going to briefly present Niger, the country where the study was conducted, with a focus on its capital, Niamey, where the study population were selected. Before talking about the study background and rationale, then I will go through the research questions, the data collection method and instrument, and the researcher participants. Besides, we will discuss the research findings that enlighten the devices used by the participants, the extent of the usage, and the attitude of the participant as far as those devices are concerned. Then we will conclude and give you the floor for your questions. Next. This is Niger's flag. As you can see, it has 3 colors. We have an orange color that represents the deserts, followed by a white color with an orange disc representing the sun, then a green color that represents the productive area of the country. Next. Here we have Niger's map with all its different regions. Our study was conducted in Niamey, the capital of the country, located in the southwest of Niger. Niamey has over 300 secondary schools and hundreds of EFL teachers. Next. Niger is among the sub-Saharan African countries that have a national plan for ICT in education since 2019. However, it's only during the pandemic that teachers were asked to continue teaching remotely due to the pandemic and the school closure because of the COVID-19 restrictions. But it has been noticed that teachers were reluctant in using ICT to teach. And the teaching process continued only through educational television and radio. Only one platform was created via WhatsApp group to teach candidates. Thus, the current study to investigate the reasons behind the reluctance of teachers in ICT usage. However, we have to notice that despite the fact that all the teachers were concerned by this reluctance, our study has focused only on EFL teachers. Next. So data were collected based on two researcher questions. The first is, to what extent do Niamey secondary EFL teachers use ICT in their teaching practices? And the second one is, what are Niamey EFL teachers' attitude toward ICT usage in teaching? Next. For the data collection method and instruments. So concerning the method, only the population was selected, and it is Niamey secondary EFL teachers. But we haven't targeted a specific number of participants. A questionnaire was administered to the participants via 5 professional platforms, among which we have 3 that are EFL teachers professional groups. Next. For the researcher participants, we have 26 EFL teachers that participated to the study, representing 19 secondary schools out of the over 300 ones that are in Niamey. The graph here gives information on the participant teaching experiences. Niamey EFL teachers that participated to the study are experienced teachers in their majority, and only a few are novice. The others are in between. Next. On this slide, we have the different devices owned by the EFL teachers in Niamey. So as we can notice, the participants possessed smartphones in their majority. However, half of them had computers, and a limited number of EFL teachers had devices such as tablets, projectors, and MP3. Next. Here we have the findings on the first researcher question. The study has shown that the majority of EFL teachers used ICT in teaching with a percentage of 84.6, even though the usage is not frequent for all of them. We have a little more than half that used ICT to teach from time to time. 80.8% of the participants used ICT for professional development, and 73.1% used it to study, while less than half of them used it for entertainment. What we can return here, though, is that a great number of the participants had a preference in using smartphone in teaching compared to ICT. Next. Continuing on the extent of Niamey EFL teachers' ICT usage. Even though we have participants that used it in their teaching practices, we also have some that were not very keen in ICT usage for teaching purposes. For instance, the frequency of ICT use was only 38.5%. Besides, some participants rarely used it, and the teachers who used ICT had a limited percentage of devices such as projectors, desktop, tablets, and MP3 usage. It is also revealed that the participants in the majority faced challenges in using ICT. Next. As far as the second research question is concerned, we had a limited number of the participants that found almost no interest in using ICT, owing to its non-availability, its unreliability, and above all, the students' attitudes like cheating and the teachers' lack of digital literacy. Next. And nevertheless, who were not in favor of ICT use participated to this study had positive attitudes toward ICT usage in teaching. As we can notice on the graph, they supported their opinions by comment on the importance of ICT in EFL teaching, such as ICT as a teaching tool that helps improve student skills, find word meanings quickly thanks to online dictionaries, help save time, teaching time, making teaching easier and funny, the student love for courses where ICT is used. Next. Above all, we have the fact that ICT can help learners use the language. In fact, as a foreign language learners, our students need to use the language frequently in order to be able to speak it in real context. And class time is much insufficient to make all the students practice their speaking skill. That's why we will pause 1 minute on the possibility that ICT gives the learners to use the language by listening to one of my fourth-year students' performance on Rita Pearson TED Talk on the importance of relationships in education to illustrate the language use I have just talked about. So Sandy, you can play the audio.
We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss or we rarely discuss is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and this academic achievement at the same time? One year, I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? And I gave them a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came and I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I'm strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress and places to go. They said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't ask you to stop. Maybe time will be enough, but it's okay. Okay, so we will go next. The next slide, please, Sandy. Okay, to conclude, we can say that Niamey EFL teachers use the ICT in contrast to the research hypothesis, though the research limits might have affected the findings. Therefore, a further research can be conducted on the same topic, cascading the limits of the current study for standard research findings to raise policymakers' awareness on the point to focus on for a better implementation of the new technology in teaching, in order to help EFL teachers build students as 21st learners. We are at the end of our presentation, but before giving you the floor, let me express my gratefulness to Africa ELTA and EVE Leadership Mentoring Program organizers, and to our lovely mentors, particularly mine. Sandy has been always with me, helping, encouraging. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much, Sandy. Thanks to you too for listening. Your questions and contributions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hadiza, for your presentation. You have taken this presentation further by conducting your research during the program. So I'm sure it was a lot of work for you, but you did a great job already. Thank you for sharing this study with us. We have one question in the chat box about using ICT in low resource context. How do you see its use while teachers do not have really proper internet connection?
So we have not only the unreliability of the internet, but also the availability of the devices. But the one we use is the smartphone. And the majority of the students, like the teachers, own a smartphone. Those among the students who don't have a smartphone have been able to use their parents' smartphone during the pandemic. So I think that it's possible if everyone is engaged. So it's not only the teachers, but also the parents, and everyone can bring a little help to make things really easier.
Yeah, I agree. Including everyone who is involved with, I think, is important. And I like that you included the voice of the student in your presentation. So it's not only the teacher's voice, but also the student's voice. Have you yourself tried using it in your classes?
Yes, in my class, I use MP3 because we don't have projectors. With MP3, I play educational videos, and I let students listen. Sometimes we use it for listening comprehension to just make them have an idea on the native speakers, because they are used to our English with accent, and they should be used to native speakers too. So with those kind of video I select only native speakers and make them listen for a listening comprehension. And I play once, 2 or 3 times, and then I stop playing and I ask them questions on what they have listened, and it works.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have recommendations about the students' age group? Like which age group do you think would be more motivated to use it?
Mine go through 4th to lycée level, so above. And almost all of them have their smartphone. And when it's my course, they know that we can use them, because for vocabulary words, I ask them to use online dictionaries. And for our kind of function lessons, we also use smartphone. Sometimes I even share the video with them in the class. We open Sender and I ask everyone to join. We create a group, I share with them, and everyone has his smartphone looking at the screen and following. So if we finish, they have to put the smartphone back in their school bag, because the other teachers don't really want them to use it during their courses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Okay, I'm looking at the chat box to see if we have questions.
Mira, I think Sue has a question. Sue's put her hand up.
Oh, yes, that's true. Let me. Okay, Sue, can you try your mic now?
Sue, you're on mute.
You're still muted, Sue. But you have access to your mic.
Okay, finally. Hadiza, hello, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. I may be wrong about this, but I think that we met 2 years ago in Niamey. My colleague Simon and I think, came into your classroom. You may not remember. It was perhaps more important to me than it was to you. So.
I remember, I
Okay. All right. So anyway, so I'd just like to say it's wonderful to see you again. It's wonderful to see you again and to remember those days we spent in the classrooms in Niger, and that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
You know, the day you come, my students were not able to understand what I'm saying. It's like I need you. They say to translate for us. Accent is completely different, and it really makes me think about how they can be in contact, and it's not possible. Only technology can enable it. So they can listen to native speakers and try to get an idea of their accent and also understand them when they.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I just wanted to say hello again. Thank you.
This is a small world.
It is.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure if we still have Hadiza with us. I think it's a connection issue. Okay. I don't see any more questions. There is one more question about the internet connection, but I think when she comes back, she can answer this in the chat box. So thank you everyone for your interactions during this presentation, and thank you Hadiza. When you are back, we hope that you'll be back very soon. They can also see the positive comments in the chat box. Okay, I think now we are ready for the second presenter tonight. And our second presenter is Joanne from Ghana. She's an English and literature in English teacher in Accra, Ghana. She holds a bachelor's degree in English education and a master's degree in English language teaching. She has been teaching for 13 years, and she is presenting tonight about creative writing in the EFL classroom. Joanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody, for being present for this all-important presentation. As earlier said, my name is Joanne Fumako. I'm an English language and literature and English teacher. Ghana. Creative writing.
Joanne, we can't hear you well. Your voice is cutting.
First, we'll have an introduction.
Can you hear me?
Types of creative writing.
I don't think.
Importance of creative. Then we'll have.
Yes, Joanne, your voice is cutting. I think it's a connection issue. Would you like to try maybe and switch off your video maybe at the beginning to make sure?
Okay, let me do.
Yeah, we are going to switch it here as well.
Please, is it better now?
Yes, much better.
Wow. So I mentioned, I tried to let you know the outline of my presentation. First, I'll give you a brief introduction to what creative writing is. Then we'll look at creative writing, what it is, the types of creative writing, techniques of writing, I'll be with you. Then, what is happening?
Joanne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please, can you hear me?
It's still connection issue. So would you like me to share it from my side, or maybe Annie can share it from her side, the slides, so it will be better for your connection?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, let me check if Annie has access to sharing. Because we want to hear you well. So, okay, Annie, you can now share. Let's just stop sharing.
Just give me a second and I will be sharing the presentation.
Sure.
Okay. Is it all right?
Yes, we see it now.
Okay. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the title of my presentation is Creative Writing, an Important Spice in the Classroom Dish. Next slide, please. The outline of my presentation, first, I'll give you a brief introduction, then we look at what creative writing is, the types of creative writing, techniques employed in creative writing, importance of creative writing. Then I'll share a practical activity with you. Finally, my references. Next slide, please. According to Rowland's 2012, self-esteem along with confidence in the language grows as students are encouraged to break out of the textbook style of learning by repetition. And Ying 2008 is of the view that students are very happy to take a break from textbook and formal writing and explore personal reflection and creative endeavors. Marley 2012, in his article, Creative Writing, Students and Teachers, asks a question many of we teachers have been asking for so many years. And what is the question? The question is, why is it that most institutional systems of education develop such a narrow and unadventurous teaching procedures? He goes on to add that it's a classroom, even in small doses. He adds that a lack of imaginative language teaching often leads students to develop a lifelong aversion to the language. So all these writers have the view that, yes, creative writing should be a very important part of the classroom experience. Next slide, please. Now, what is creative writing? Traditionally referred to as literature, creative writing is an art of a sort. It is the art of making things up. It is writing done in a way that is not academic or technical, but still attracts an audience. Also, creative writing normally refers to the production of texts which have an aesthetic rather than a purely informative, instrumental, or pragmatic purpose. Additionally, it expresses an author's unique voice, his or her unique writing style, thoughts and ideas in an engaging, aesthetic, and imaginative manner. Next slide, please. Now we look at some types of creative writing. Creative writing can be in the form of poetry, drama, prose, that is fiction, in like short stories, novels, novellas. It can be in the form of movies or songs. Next slide, please. Now, the techniques employed in the creative writing classroom. You can brainstorm your students during creative writing classroom, experiences. You can also put students in small group or whole class activities. You can allow students to role play, engage in dialoguing. You can let them dramatize, or you can let them write a story or write a poem. Next slide. Now we want to look at the importance of creative writing. Why is it important? How important is it in the classroom? First, it helps students to unleash their creative and imaginative abilities. It will surprise you the kind of abilities our students have until we allow them to come out of their shells and bring out what actually they have within them. It also helps students to develop critical thinking abilities and problem-solving skills. Sometimes in a classroom, when you put down a topic like drug abuse, teenage pregnancy, and you allow your students to write or talk about it, you realize that they really have, very good ideas within them as to how to solve these critical issues in our society. It also helps them to release their innermost feelings. And it also helps in cultural preservation, development, and transformation. For instance, in a book written in Ghana by Efo Kojo Maugbe, the whole world is exposed to the Ghanaian culture. That is the way our marriage is done, our traditional practices and all, and some of our religious beliefs. Next slide, please. In the next slide, I would want us to engage in a very short practical activity. I will be looking through the chat box. I found this image on WhatsApp and I saw it mind-boggling. I felt like, what does it really mean? And I shared it with my students, but I want you to give me your idea about it. What does this image, what kind of impression, or what does this image create in your mind? I want you to share in the chat box within the next 2 seconds. Then I go on to share with you a step-to-step practical activity I took my student through with this particular image in my classroom. I just have 2 minutes. Please share with me just one word, what this image suggests to you. Wow. Mary says loneliness. Please, you can share your ideas in the chat box as we engage. Someone says, Amira says solitude. Stopping to breathe, but I'm not sure why it's that to me. Okay. Kwame says cooperation. Someone says magician. We have to take care of ourselves. Homeless. Self-care. Wow. Interesting responses out there. Headache. Wow. That's interesting. Annie says headache. Okay, we'll share the rest maybe after my presentation. Next slide, please. Help yourself first. Nice, nice. Okay, so with this image, I engaged my students in a classroom, practical classroom activity. And I want to share with you the step-by-step, the steps I took in the classroom. First, in a whole class discussion, I brainstormed my students on the words that the picture suggests to them. And I allowed them to write these words on the board. Then after that, I put my students into small groups. In their groups, I allowed my students to select a few of the words on the board that interest them, so that they put these words together to form a very unique poem in their individual groups. Then after they designed the poems, I allowed my students to share the poems to the whole class or to other classes. Okay. Then eventually we pasted the poem on the board in the classroom, on the wall, or even on the notice board in the school. And I think that Through this activity, my students were really motivated to even write poems. After this activity, most of them would just come to me and say, oh, madam, I think I want to write a poem on love. I think I want to write a poem on whatever theme they are interested in. Next slide, please. So these are some of the responses I had from my students: loneliness, isolation, self-love, liberty, self-reliance, independence, peace, detachment, self-support. And surprisingly, I can find some of the responses from my students in the chat box. It means that we are thinking alike. So people all over the world have some ideas in relation to this picture linked to the ideas my students have. Next slide, please. Now let's look at some of the poems my students designed from this picture. The first one is, in my solitude, I believe in my ability. In my solitude, I enjoy my liberty. Next, please. I am not selfish. I am not empty. I am only self-sufficient and I love who I am. Next, please. Feed your mind with the right information and you will have the right results, because garbage in, garbage out. Next, please. When alone, mind your thoughts. When alone, mind your words. Next, please. And finally, I have for you, your brain is your biggest asset. Read, read, read. Feed your brain so you become great. Next slide. Okay, so these are a few references I have for you. And thank you so much for your attention. I can have your questions now, please.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for your presentation. Very inspiring on using creative writing to encourage students to create in writing. Amazing work that you have done. We have one question about what is the teacher's role in the process of creative writing?
Okay, interesting question. The teacher serves as a moderator. The teacher serves as an encourager. The teacher becomes one who pushes the students to be able to bring out what they have within them. So you bring on board all the techniques you have or you can have to be able to bring out that creativity within your students. Thank you.
Very interesting. And Sandy is asking, do you ever have any students who do not want to write poems? How do you encourage them?
Yes, not everybody will be interested in doing a particular thing, but since it's a whole classroom activity and since I try putting them into smaller groups, they collaborate with each other. So one person is much more interested, the other might not be interested, but they encourage each other to bring out what is within them. So one might be down, one might be up, and the students help each other to produce the best of poems or stories they could produce. So my role is to bring them together, let them help each other to bring out the best in them.
Wow, that's great. Mary is asking, do you always use pictures in the creative writing lesson, or do you have other tools?
Yes, there are other tools. As I mentioned during my presentation, include songs, videos, movies. You can let them role play, you can let them dramatize. So there are other more techniques you can involve in the creative writing classroom.
Yes. How strict are you with grammar in creative writing?
In fact, there's something we call poetic license. And that is the license or the freedom given to poets or writers to explore language just as how they want it. So with something like poetry, we are not too strict on grammar. You could see that their poems might not be well punctuated according to the rules of grammar. But when it comes to creative writing, you don't restrict them to grammar. You allow them to come out. Sometimes some of this, grammatical in quotes mistakes as we see might be the poet or the writer's own style of bringing out his or her idea. So it makes the writer unique when he or she explores language in that unique manner. So don't be too strict in the creative writing classroom. Mm-hmm. And let me add that is what really makes them so interested in lessons during creative writing, because it's not too strict, it's not too rigid. You are allowed to do whatever you want with language. You manipulate language in the creative writing classroom.
Yeah, Joanne, you shared with us before in the practice session what you did with your students to motivate them to start the lesson. And we had some photos on your slides for you with the students outside of the classroom, in the garden maybe, or outside of the classroom setting itself. So can you tell us more about this, how you prepare the students to be creative in writing by doing other things that are not really in the lesson?
Exactly. You could see that in my introduction, I stated that creative writing allows you to get out of the straight jacket, classroom, board, pen style of learning. It brings the students the freedom in the classroom. So personally, I see this kind of class as a free-going class. So personally, during some of my creative writing classes, I take my students out of the classroom under a tree. If I have money, sometimes I have smaller classes, like you can see in my slides, about 10 people, 15 people. I get them toffees, maybe biscuits, yogurts. So as we are working, we are motivated, we feel relaxed. So there's no tension in the classroom, but alongside this relaxation, students are engaging in learning. Therefore, learning shouldn't be so strict and tense. You can allow learning to be relaxed and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Joanne, that's great. And it's very obvious that you yourself are passionate about poetry and creative writing. And I think this affects your teaching and inspires your students a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have a question from Sam about other types of writing that you teach. Do you teach students prose, sonnet writing?
Do I teach my students what?
Yeah,
no,
various
please. Can you
types
come
of
again?
writing. Do you expose your students to different types of writing or only creative writing?
Okay, for now, in my literature classrooms, I engage in creative writing. But under creative writing, we have various forms of writing. As I stated, there can be fiction, there can be non-fiction, even dirge. So they can put these few words together and try to create a beautiful song. So it's not just poems, but we have a whole lot of areas to explore in the creative writing classroom.
Yeah, and I like that you turned the negative feelings sometimes, and students produce very positive poetry about themselves and how they feel. This is really amazing.
Exactly. It's just about you, the teacher, making the students understand that they should be positive about everything in life. Fine, negativity will come, but look at the positive side of it and move on. So looking at this picture, I told you, I saw the picture mind-boggling. I felt like, look, somebody can look at this picture and say so many negative things about it. But Fortunately, my students rather saw so many positive sides about this picture, and I was really happy about the results I got in this class.
Oh, amazing. We have one final question, Joanne. Do you restrict your students to certain topics, or you let them choose any topic?
Not at all. There's no restriction. I think during my presentation, I mentioned that sometimes my students come to me and they say, Madam, I want to write on love. Madam, something happened in my house and I want to compose a story, or I want to compose a song, I want to write a poem about it. So it's not rigid. It's very flexible. Sometimes a group comes up and say, look, we want to dramatize on this thing. And I allow them to dramatize to the whole class.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Joanne. I think we are done with the questions. If there are more questions in the chat box, I think you can address them later on. Would you like to say one final word before we move on?
Yeah, just a short word. I'm grateful for this opportunity to present, and I'm happy about your participation. The responses were great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanne, for the great presentation, for inspiring us as well to teach creative writing. Okay, great. Now I think we are ready for Oliver, our next presenter. Oliver is an English teacher and the headmistress of a secondary school in Tanzania. She holds a diploma in education, and she's going to present to us tonight about ways to reveal girls' potential. It's a very interesting topic that Oliver is going to present about tonight. Oliver, I think you have the access to share your screen. You're also muted. Oliver, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you now. Great.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Amira, do you see my screen?
Not yet.
I have shared.
Yes, it started to share now.
Okay.
Can you allow the slide show?
Sure.
Excellent.
Thank you. Impromptu meeting that revealed girls and tapped the potentials, creating future leaders. Some of you know me. For those who don't, my name is Oliver Kimathi. I'm English teacher at Bujingwa Secondary School, Mwanza, Tanzania. May I take this opportunity to walk you through what I have prepared tonight. Okay, we'll have the background, how it started, successful ways of running girls empowerment clubs, benefits of empowering girls at schools. We'll have leaders in the community. And lastly, we have conclusion that also have my contact address. Okay, how it began. I've been teaching since 2007, and my experience interacting with the students, I observed the different behavior between girls. In most of the time, in the classroom and outside of the classroom, girls would show shyness. If they are to do things, they want to do it with confidence, they will show shyness. Even responding to questions in the class, girls will not have courage to do that. And that one led them to lack confidence. When girls are supposed to respond to questions in the classroom or share things that they need to do, most of the time you find that they don't have confidence to share it, just like the way boys do in the classroom and outside the classroom. Then I also learned that girls have no confidence to lead. When it is time for them to have their own government or to lead in the classroom, you find that they show reluctance to lead. So you can find that you have a group of students, many of them are, when they are their leaders, many of them are boys, you find few girls. And if they are to lead, we have to use a lot of effort to motivate them to lead. Also, I observed the truants among girls. I tried to make a follow-up of 5 girls, and I find that they cannot come to school all the months through. You can find some days they are not coming to school. And all this lead to poor performance in the classroom. As a teacher, I found that I have something to do to make these girls as strong as boys and also active in the classroom so that in the end, they can reach their dreams and also have good performance as their counterpart boys. So what I decided to do, I had to conduct a meeting. I call it impromptu meeting because it was not planned. When I wanted to establish girls club, I found the ways that I can bring girls together so that they can share their ideas. And one day I sat under the tree. I had my laptop looking at their photos, and some girls were coming to look what I was doing. Then I told them that let us sit down here. We find the way you can address challenges that you face in education, leadership, and also talk of early pregnancy. That was the challenge to many girls. And lastly, we had to discuss about a very sensitive matter to them, menstruation. I say sensitive because menstruation has been taken differently in our communities, from home and to the community, and that one affects girls in many ways. So from this meeting is when the idea of Girls Empowerment Club was born. Then the next slide, I'm going to share with you the successful ways of running Girls Empowerment Club. After having girls together, I found that we need to get how we can move. So I conducted needs analysis. Girls, I wanted them to share the challenge that they are facing. What are their needs? What strength do they have? And what's the role of their parents towards what is happening? When I talk the role of parents here, I mean the traditions, because in our communities and elsewhere in Africa, we uphold the traditions, and some of the traditions make women and girls to be subservient to their counterpart boys. So we want to know if they know the role of traditions and how it is affecting them, what they want to know, and what they already know. So after conducting that one, I found that information is powerful. One way to make the Girls Club successful, I had to find information to them. So you can see in this picture here, girls are reading stories from the female leaders for many years. They read female leaders before independence, during independence, and in the current situation. So you find that they get things that can encourage them on how they can stand for themselves and compete in different resources that we have in our community. I also found it is important in our club to involve boys. You can see in this picture here, we have a girl and a boy, and my club will have boys as well. They discuss different issues together. They learn they learn how their bodies are changes and how can that help them to work as a team in different activities to uplift the academic standards between boys and girls in the school. Another success benefit, we are going to look at the benefits of running Girls Club in schools. Here, I started working with girls, but this group here is the group of teachers now working together, helping girls to learn new skills. Like here, they're learning cooking skills. They also make detergents, and the school now is using detergents that they are made from the girls' club, and they conserve the environment. Girls have agreed to plant trees around the school to make the school green, and they use the trees also to study during extracurricular activities. Another benefit, they learn about new life skills. You can see these girls here. They are cooking. They use their environment, things which are available, to make cakes. Cake is not a common food to our area, but with the help of the teachers, they have learned how to make it, and they're using the environment, and also they are creating employment opportunities in future when they finish their schooling. And another thing, which is very important, girls can now speak publicly. As you can see this girl here addressing a group of girls at school, and they have the confidence to speak. They also improve their speaking and listening skills, and they improve their English. A point to note here, in our country, the language of instruction from primary level is Kiswahili, and the students learn English at secondary level. So they need a lot of interactions and speaking activities so that they can grab the skills of English. And another benefit that we get after having this club is students are now able to talk about menstruation freely, and they also talk about the reusable sanitary pads. Here, the students are sharing the use of reusable sanitary pads, and they can address menstruation, how they can manage it. You can see here, they also discuss the importance of these reusable sanitary pads to the environment and to the girls themselves, and also to the families. Most of the family members believed that menstruation is kind of a curse to girls and is not something to address publicly. But after staying together, they get knowledge and experience so they can share together and find the ways how they can manage the menstruation while they're at school and at home. And also, this has helped them to break the taboo that is associated with menstruation. That is something femaleish, family members should not know, but in real sense, everyone has to assist a girl so that they can study well at the school without getting many hurdles that affect their studies. Okay, in this slide here, I have decided to share the close-up picture of the sanitary pads that we use. This is the wing that is acting as the industrial pads, and this is the piece of cloth. In between here, we have layers, and when we fold it, we'll get something like this, and a student or a girl has to insert it in the wing. These are small things, look like a little pocket. They have to insert the pads in it. Then they use the pressing studs shown here to press it under the underwear, and the girl is ready to go. We use this locally available material here as a kit to keep the pads. So you find everything here is locally available. It doesn't cost much, but if a girl can use it well, it can last even 2 or 3 years. It is economical, and it also helps the families. Another benefit is teamwork. As you can see here, this is a boy and these are girls. They are working together. They identify challenges, just they are facing them. They go beyond the classroom setting, and they can also discuss challenges they are facing outside the school and in the community in general, and they find solutions together. It also promotes their creativity because they do many things together, and they use the environment to find a solution. Even the sanitary pads I was sharing with you, it is the idea from one of the students who participated in a certain program outside the country, and when she came back, she brought in the idea. We employed the idea, and it is helping them. So they're working together, boys and girls, to make these pads, and also to share different things on how to conserve the environment, how to help with each other in the classroom. And as I said earlier, they also improve their English skills because that helps them to perform better in the classroom and outside the classroom. In the teamwork also, they do dramatization, they organize skits that they share together, and they also address students during the morning and afternoon gatherings at school that motivate other students also to practice English language. Also, this club has helped these students to have awareness, self-awareness. You can see them here holding up their kits and the resources that they are used. They have read different books that talk about girls leaders, that it has inspired them to be who they are. So they are promoting freedom of expression. They are now leaders. When you have school government, girls compete to hold different positions in leadership. They have increased their confidence and the boldness to address different issues. They have improved the school's attendance and they share their resources together. Also, girls' performance in academic has risen tremendously. In one school, I had a school that since its establishment, girls have never scored Division 1 in the national examinations, but after establishing Girls Empowerment Club, now we have girls appearing in the top 10 performers in the academics, which is very useful and good for them. Now, let us see them. They are now leaders in the community. As you can see, this group of students here, they have a booth. It was in the one of the university in our area. It was English consortium that was conducted and involved the 6 countries in East Africa. These girls had their booth there. They are sharing the success that they have got just because of being in the girls club. They're showing their menstrual pads here, the books that they read and things that they make in the group, and they can address the challenges that they're facing and the solution that they created together and how it has helped them to reach their dreams, and they are ready to lead in the community after finishing the school. And they also increase their networking. Remember, they're sharing the ideas in the university that had a lot of people, so they increase their communication and networking, and also it's kind of motivation for them to join the university in the future. This is my conclusion. According to Tanya Lee, 2017, empowering girls at schools makes sense because they fight for their education, and 62% of girls are out of school due to various reasons. Women compose half the population in the world according to CIA Factbook 2018. Therefore, empowering girls strengthens economies and make them good people in the country and elsewhere in the world. This is the group of the first club I established. Most of them are in the university now. I communicate with them. They are cascading the knowledge. They have established different girls empowerment clubs. So I believe working together here will also change your community, and together we can bring equal world with equal sharing of ideas and resources. Thank you so much for listening. And I would like to take this time to share, to extend my thanks to everyone here for using your time to listen to what I had to present it to you, and also to my mentor, Laura McWilliams. You have been a good guide to me, encouraged me, motivated me so that I can make this presentation. Thank you so much for your time, and I welcome your questions and contributions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Oliver. We don't want this to end. It's a very inspiring presentation, and I'm not sure if you can see the chat box, but everyone is saying this is a great presentation. It's very inspiring. It's empowering for girls and women. It's an example of leadership and women and girls empowerment as well. Amazing work that you have done. Wonderful ideas, outstanding presentation. I hope you can really read the chat box. I don't see any questions, but I have a question myself about including boys in these activities. Why did you include boys in topics related to girls?
Thank you, Amira. In the beginning, when I started the Girls Empowerment Club, boys were not there. But as we continued working, I found that it is important because they have to understand the situation girls are passing through, and also to reduce the gap that has always existed between boys and girls. As I mentioned in my presentation, according to our traditions, mostly in our country and also elsewhere in Africa, are male dominating. They are given chances, they are priority to education, priority for everything, decision making. So working together with girls, they can feel the challenges girls are passing through, and they can work together to solve them and also reduce the gap that is existing between them.
Wow, that's. I think this is very important. It makes it more effective. We have a question from Sandy. She said you mentioned that the club members read about female leaders. What kind of stories did you share with them, and how did you get access to these resources?
Yes, I had to work with non-government organizations. I am working with one of them called the Kesho Fund. It is supporting us a lot to make these sanitary pads. And also we have another one that has our name. It's called the Mikono Yetu. Mikono is hands and Yet is ours, so it's our hands. So I work with them, and it's the one that support me to get these resources like books. The stories that they read from the books are leaders, female leaders, the way they were fighting for their families before colonialism, and they are preventing their children to be taken to be slaves. And from there, after independence, we found that women, they're fighting for their own rights and education. So those are the kind of stories that they read, and also they motivate them a lot, encourage them, and they make them to be strong, and they believe, they have a self-awareness, and they believe on themselves. Those are the kind of stories that they read.
Yeah, Marie is asking, what is the boys' reaction?
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, in the beginning, when I told boys to join the club, they said, Madam, we cannot do that. Those are girls' stuff, and we cannot get involved in it. But I sat down with them, and I was asking some questions like what happened in the family. I told them, is it okay when you go home for girls to do all household chores, and you get chance to read, do revision, and do your homework, and sometimes get time to go for playing, but girls cannot get time? Do you find that is okay? They said no. So how do you think you can just help a girl so that she can also get the time, so that she can participate in revising what they read at school and do homework, and also get time for a little play? How can you just, okay, I think I should help her some of the activities? Then that's the great thing. Now, when you are in the club, it is easy to learn to them, to hear their feelings, and see how you can help. So slowly, the number of boys joining the club increased. And when boys come to the club, I normally give them the first chance to talk. So when they speak, you find that they motivate other boys also and encourage them to join. So you find that my club has a number of boys and girls, and they are now working collaboratively.
Wow, that's amazing. Someone is asking, why can't you involve male teachers too?
Yes, I have one of the school that the one who leads the club is a male teacher. So I'm involved in them. The challenge is the same, that male think that if they do these female-ish things, they'll become weak. That's what the community believes, and that's many men believe. So when they get enough education, they understand that is their role as a parent to help girls. And also they have female children at home. It's their role to help them. So I find that if you can help your girl at home, what's the difference do you see helping these girls at school? So fun that we have teachers who are working on them. And also when I have parents meeting, we normally sit together with parents and the female and male teachers. After finishing the agenda, I must talk about girls' issues, and I invite male teachers to address these issues. So through that one, we are getting boys closer to the clubs that we are leading at schools.
That's really like starting a conversation with everyone. We have a question about parents' reaction. How did they respond to your lessons?
Yeah, parents, I have different feelings, and also they have different feelings. Some parents think that I'm teaching their girls to be over men, that to dominate and make men to be low. And some say that maybe because it's helping their girls to perform better in the classroom, they find it's okay. But what we normally do, as I mentioned, education is powerful. We have to share with the parents and give them the real situation girls are passing through, and what importance does it make to take a child to school, and when they finish, they have very low marks or performance that will not take them anywhere. So if they want their girls also to advance academically, they have to treat them well at school. So we're trying to bring kind of equality and equity that will support them and they can perform, so that the time they invest to educate them will not be time waste. So parents understand, and many of them are supporting me. And when we give them the reusable sanitary pads, some of the parents are helping their children to take care of them. So they're understanding what I'm doing.
You're also changing the mindset, Oliver. So I think this will take time, and I'm glad to hear that some parents are good with it. Like they feel it's really important. We have Beatrice, and I think she got very inspired by your presentation. She wants to start her girls' club, and she's asking, how did you start it, and how can she start? How can she start one in her community?
Oh, thank you, Beatrice, for your great question. Yeah, I can take my example, my experience, how I started mine. When I put girls together, I asked them to share their challenges and what they think could be solutions. That was the best thing I did, because they owned the club and found it is their own. They generate different things, and the ideas that they bring, I use them. The idea of menstrual pads, these reusable ones, came from one of the girls in the club, and we just bought the idea and we use it. So in order to start a club successfully, make sure that you make it it belongs to the girls, not something you impose to them, but something that you facilitate them to establish and run. So most of the time I'm the facilitator than the ruler in that club. That can make it be successful.
Yeah, Oliver, and would you mind sharing your email address in the chat box, so maybe also Beatrice can get in touch with you? I'm sure you can help her if she wants to start her club.
Sure. I'm sharing it right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver, for the great presentation, very inspiring, and the great work that you are doing with your students. It's very impactful, and this is the kind of work I think we as teachers would be really interested in doing outside of the classroom as well. Okay, now it's time for our next presenter. So I'm going to now introduce Patricia, our last presenter tonight. Patricia started her teaching career 31 years ago. She was a teacher for 22 years and was promoted to be the senior education specialist, then transferred to the provisional teacher development services in her community. She is the deputy president of NAITSA, the Teacher Association of South African Teachers, and she's going to present to us tonight about the value of pre-reading activities in teaching reading skills. Patricia, I see you are already ready. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amira. Good evening, colleagues. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. As Amira has said, my name is Patricia from South Africa. I taught for 22 years and I was the subject advisor for 5 years. I'm currently with Teacher Development Provincial Office, and it is our responsibility there to make sure that teachers are being developed, motivated, and given all the necessary resources that they need for them to be able to give us good results that we need as a province. My topic for tonight is the value of pre-reading activities when teaching reading. This was, it started at the beginning when I realized that learners were not able to read with meaning. While I was the subject advisor, I saw it as a serious challenge because most of our learners could not read with meaning. For example, there was a research done or an assessment done in 2016 where learners were expected to read and they were checked if they were able to read with meaning. That assessment is PIRLS, Progress in International Reading Literacy Program, where the grade 4 learners were expected to respond to questions to check if they were able to read with meaning. And to our surprise, about 78% of our learners could not read with meaning. That is what made me interested in the topic. And the outline of my presentation is as follows. I'll first look at the importance of reading, why use pre-reading activities, some pre-reading activities that we can use in a classroom, and how can we motivate children to read independently, even when they are not being supervised. The first one is the importance of reading. Why is it important for us or learners to read? We are able to communicate through reading. You can see those two pictures, the three pictures there. They are individual learners reading individually, so they are smiling, and it means they are enjoying what they are reading. That is how we can communicate while reading. And I also have a group of learners who have their books being raised up that they normally take home to go and read. That is how you can extend reading. It is not only supposed to be done in class, it should also be done at home where learners can enjoy themselves under the supervision of parents, because it is important for us as teachers to make sure that even at home, reading takes place so that they become critical and fluent readers in whatever they will be given, and even having to choose their own books. Secondly, we know that through reading, we are able to know what happens around us in our country, in my locality, and also around the world. I have used that picture where you see an elderly lady and an elderly man reading the newspaper. That means reading does not stop at an early age or maybe after tertiary. Even when you are an old lady, an old man, you still need to know what is happening around you. And you can do that by reading the newspaper or any other material that you can use to read and get to know whatever that is happening around you. Again, we use reading to learn the content of other subjects. For example, in most of our schools in South Africa, the language of learning and teaching is English, meaning learners, for them to be able to learn and to understand, they should be able to know how to read and the skills that they can use for them to be able to understand whatever they are reading. So it's important that as we treat reading as English teachers, we try to focus on those strategies that our learners can use even when they are doing their work individually, so that they become critical readers who can engage with the text easily. Then the next point that I'll look at is, why do we use pre-reading activities when we teach reading? Before I can go into the gist of the presentation for tonight, I'll look briefly at the process approach to reading. We have got 3 levels of reading: pre-reading activities, where learners are being prepared to read before they can read a text. We'll look at the different ways of how that could be done, especially to the young ones, because we expect them to be able to do that individually after being trained or taught how to do that. During reading, that's when we expect our learners to engage with the text after having been prepared at the beginning. And some of the questions that they had before they could read, those questions could be answered during the reading process. Lastly, they now respond to reading. We call that the post-reading activity or session. They now look at the questions that they are expected to respond to. Sometimes you can even give them those questions at the beginning of the reading lesson. It's all up to you, and it also depends on how you interact with your learners. So it's very important that you need to know your learners and know how that has to be done. All these 3 levels are clearly explained in our CAPS document, our curriculum document that we use as South Africa. Why do we use pre-reading activities? Pre-reading activities are important to teach our learners new vocabulary. The teacher must go to the classroom after having gone through the story or the text that he or she has prepared for his learners or her learners, and look for those difficult words that, according to the level of the learners, might be difficult. Prepare learners with a purpose for reading. There must be a purpose that you put beforehand for your learners to read. Do you want them to respond to questions, or do you want them just to enjoy the text and know all the different skills that they need as they read? That will depend on the lesson that you have prepared. We also do those pre-reading activities to motivate, to engage, and to get them ready to read before they can read. And also you activate their schemata. Before they read, because you would have prepared them for any subject that you will be doing, they must have in mind the type of vocabulary that they would expect to find in the story that they are reading. That is how you can activate their schemata, by trying to guide them to where you want them to be, looking at the different words that might be used in the text before they can even read them. And it also becomes easy for them to know exactly what would be in the story. And then those 2 pictures that I have there, those are the foundation phase teachers, those that have got some pieces of papers. We try to make sure during training that teachers model how reading could be taught, especially to the young ones who still struggle with reading. They will be given some letters where they can form different words by just regrouping those words and making them to make sense to everybody who will be reading. So they were attending training and they were demonstrating what has to happen. And on my left-hand side, I was motivating them so that when they go back to their schools, they need to do all those things that they are being taught, or trained to do during training sessions. Next, we move on to some pre-reading activities. There are so many of them that you can use. And for tonight, I'll only focus on a few that I think will benefit our learners, especially the young ones who are still early readers. Pre-reading activities, brainstorming. During brainstorming, all our learners are given an opportunity to come up with ideas that are related to the story. And during this process, not any idea that is being given by a learner is wrong. You accept everything because they infer looking at the title, and they need, they want to have a better understanding of whatever they think the story might be about. So we are not supposed to discourage them during that process, but rather allow them to make mistakes so that as they do reading, then they get to understand it better because they'll be getting answers from the text. Discussing the title, it's very important that they know what the title is about. There might be difficult words also in the title that you will even touch as you do the pre-reading activities. Looking at the pictures, especially in the foundation phase and the early intermediate phase, You'll give them picture stories that they can look at, and then later on be able to, during the activity, they'll be able to think of what the story could be about by looking at the story before they could read. Prediction activities, pre-teaching vocabulary games is one of the pre-reading activities. Pre-reading activities that could be done, for example, Pictionary. You give a learner a word, and that word may, for example, you say maybe a cat, and you then expect that learner to draw that picture on the board or maybe on a chart, and learners who will be looking, because only those that will be doing the exercise will be the one being able to see what that word is. Then they'll be able to draw on the board or on the chart so that others can have an idea of what their classmate is trying to tell them what to do. Skimming, that's when learners are looking at the general idea of what the story is about. They can just browse through the story just to have a general idea of what the story is about. And then scanning, that's when they are looking for specific information from the text. If maybe you expect them to respond to questions that you had before, you can allow them to do that, and they will be knowing exactly what they are looking for. It is also advisable to allow your learners, maybe after having looked at the discussion while discussing the title, to allow them to come up with their own questions. And later on, you can come up with their question if maybe you want them to focus on a specific area of responding to questions. In that way, they seem to understand it better because they would have come up with questions after being given the topic. Maybe they would be expected to come up with the ending after reading the first 3 paragraphs, depending on how long the story is. That also gives them a chance to be involved in that. And here, I also quoted some of these or looked for this from Herma J, 2015, The Practice of English Language Teaching, 5th edition, that was printed or published by Pearson. He calls them interactive sessions where learners are given opportunities to be able to engage and to have a better understanding of what the story is about. Next is my
I think
different strategies.
Trisha, okay, you're back.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, you could not hear me for some time?
Just for 2 seconds.
Oh, thank you. Okay, how can we motivate learners to read? Firstly, we teach them reading strategies. As we do our different pre-reading activities, we can also use the different strategies like group guided reading, peer reading, silent reading. Those are the different strategies that we can teach our learners so that as they do their independent reading, then they can maybe use any of those that they think would be fine for them for that particular reading. Secondly, we model positive reading habits. How do we do that? As teachers, they must see us as readers. Don't just practice something that you don't do. Read, share the book that you are reading with them. Maybe if you have a reading club, you can even tell them about the book you are reading. They can also come up with their books that they are reading and share ideas during that. Whatever they would have learned from the story, in a way, it will assist each one of them. I've already touched that. Number 3, create a book club. It will depend on your locality or maybe at your school if you are able to create one that will meet in the morning, depending on your schedules, in the afternoon, and then you will meet with your learners to try and discuss those that you think are still a challenge to your learners during normal teaching time. After learners have been given all the different strategies and you also modeled as the teacher, your learners will now be interested in reading, and they'll be able to choose their own books because they will have interest. Maybe if they are boys, they might be interested in soccer books or any other sport that they are interested in. And when they go to the library, they will be able to choose their own books because you would have motivated them as their teacher. Those are some of the learners that I have in my reading club, and they were singing a song together. It's a mixed group that has got learners from grade R up to grade 9. We normally have an activity that they do together, and after that, I'll then give each one, according to their levels, certain time to go and do different activities. And even those older ones, they sometimes model reading to the young ones so that they get to see how their big sisters, big brothers do it, so that they can also do it on their own. In conclusion, I will quote Samuel Johnson's quote, and it reads thus: "A writer only begins a book, a reader finishes it." Close quote.
Okay, Patricia, we lost you again.
Or kcchogela@nwpg.gov.za. Thank you so much, Africa ELTA, and thank you, Eve, for this opportunity. It was really wonderful working with my mentor, who is Sarah Mesa from Austria. Thank you so much. It is now time for you to ask questions that I'll respond to.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for your presentation and sharing practical activities on pre-reading that we can use in our classes. We have one question from, one second, Hadiza said, how can we allow learners to choose their own books when we have a syllabus to follow?
Thank you, Amira. When we do the different strategies, we can start by reading books that are current. What do I mean by current? We look at those books that will interest our learners, something that is happening around. Also, it has to be age appropriate. Those books that we choose, at the beginning, what normally happens, especially in the foundation phase and intermediate phase, what normally happens is you look at your learners, you test them, so that you put them according to their groups and according to their capabilities. So that as you give them books, as you allow them to choose their own books, you would have given them their different levels, and maybe within that level, there are certain books that they can only read, and they will be having interest because you will allow them to choose their own books that they find interesting.
Okay, how would you advise parents to become involved in reading to their children? This is another question.
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I could not hear you for some time.
Okay, I will repeat the question. So how would you advise parents to become involved in reading to their children?
Thank you for that. You know, children involvement, I mean, parental involvement is a serious concern. I think it's everywhere. The best thing to do, especially when they are still young, so that as they grow older, they are able to do that independently, is to call those parents to open days where you tell them about the importance of reading. If they are not able to come, give learners letters that they will take home, because it depends on how you communicate with your parents. Some of the schools, especially now after COVID-19, they created group WhatsApp with parents. They can communicate with them, and it becomes easier for them to know what happens in a classroom. So there are different ways of trying to bring parents closer in cases where you find that they are not part of their children's learning. WhatsApp groups where you can share everything, write letters, depending on maybe their geographical areas, and also calling them if it is possible. It will only depend on your scenario as a school. Thank you.
Most students don't like reading. How do you get them motivated to read? And I think we lost Patricia again. Patricia, can you hear me? I'm going to switch off my video. Maybe this will help.
Yes, could not now. I can.
Yeah, this is the last question. I think you can respond to the rest in the chat box. We lost you now. Okay. Patricia? You are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. There is a last question about motivating students to read. How do you get your students to read since most of the students do not like reading?
Yes, most of the students do not like to read, and there are different reasons why that problem exists. Sometimes it is because they do not have phonemic awareness that should have been done in the foundation phase. So firstly, you need to identify what is causing them not to be interested in reading. And then after doing that, you try to motivate them by giving them, especially if they are elementary readers, then you give them books that will not be that challenging to them, that will give them that interest to do it even on their own. If they still
It seems we lost her again.
also be done in smaller reading clubs that you can have.
Okay, Patricia. I'm not sure if you are done answering this question, but I think we have a couple of questions left, but I think you can read them in the chat box. Now you can read in the chat box, Patricia, and answer the questions in the chat box. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Amira. I don't know what is happening because right from the beginning I was in, only when I present, then I got cut out for some time. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you, Sarah, for your guidance, your mentorship, right from the beginning up to the end. Thank you, Africa, ELTA, and Eve.
Thank you, Patricia, for sharing your experience with us and for sharing great ideas about teaching reading tonight. And with this presentation, we have come to the end of today's webinar. We have these. Oh, someone is in and out. Okay. So we had 4 presenters tonight, and we had 4 presenters last week. We had a total of 8 teachers who completed this program, submitted their proposals, and also presented, have given their final presentations in these 2 webinars after receiving mentoring for 3 months by mentors from Eve. On behalf of Africa ELTA, I would like to thank all our mentors who have exerted a lot of effort through these 3 months, working with the teachers and making sure that the presentations are great, as we have seen them tonight. This has been really a great work that all the mentors have done. We would like to thank you all. And also, I would like to thank Fiona, my partner in this program, and invite Fiona to say a few words from Eve.
Thank you, Amira. Well, that was a very pleasant way to spend a Saturday evening. I've made some notes that I'll pass on in the future. But I'd just like to say some thank yous as well and start off with the 4 ladies that we've watched this evening. ladies, you might like to download the chat from the chat box, because you'll find a lot of love there for you and for your work. The presentations are fascinating. Apart from you yourselves and listening to you and sharing your thoughts and your work with you, I really liked, and I noted this down, I really loved being able to hear the voice of Hadiza's student and read Joanne's students' poems. I thought were fantastic. Oliver, the photos of your students and that club, and just, I felt a bit like I was visiting it. It was just amazing. And then Patricia, the photos of the teachers with the little cards and training, just getting that little view into your sort of professional initiatives and the wonderful work that you're doing there, and then sharing with us. It was just, it's lovely, you know, it's fantastic doing that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And also, just to sort of expand on the thank yous to the mentees, there were 8, well, there were 10 initially. They've all done a huge amount of work. Unfortunately, only 8 managed to make it to the final, across the final hurdle. Everybody has personal situations and whatever, but all of you, it's just been beautiful meeting you, listening to you once a month, communicating with you on our lovely WhatsApp group, sharing all the little emojis, and please let's continue to do that. Mentors, my mentoras, thank you so much for your support, for taking part in this, for saying yes when I asked you to do it immediately, being so keen, sharing your time. Now, as I said before, there's no distinction between who's a mentee and a mentor in this program. So I'm saying thank you to about 20 people right now. And of course, to my wonderful partner in crime, Amira, with the lovely smile. Amira, you always look so beautiful. Doesn't matter what day, what time. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for hosting using your platform to host these meetings. It's been wonderful. As co-founder of EVE, this is the second program that we've done with Amira. Some of our mentees from the first program are here. One's waving right now.
Yeah, Comba's here.
Hello. Yes.
And I think Irene is around as
We've
well.
had support from you, so thank you so much. You've been there. You've been very much there, helping us. Yeah, Irene's been around. Abigail has been in and out other times. It's just, we've said this before to the people who are part of the program, but for those of you who are visiting us today, this is something, I mean, Amira mentioned 3 months. I don't really believe that it is 3 months. I think it's for a life. I think that this program, the 2 editions of this program, we've managed to forge strong relationships, a strong sense of community and of family. It's not just what you see on the screen here. We have our WhatsApp groups. We communicate nearly every day, I think, more or less. Sarah Mercer, one of our mentees, has actually been to visit her mentor. She's been to visit her mentee from the first program. I just feel the connection here is so strong. I love being part of this program, just empowering women who then empower girls, who then empower more girls, and then just, it's not just girls, it's teachers, it's people, and it's humanity. And I'd just love to thank all of you, even those of you who come to watch us today, because you're supporting our beautiful mentees. So thank you, everybody, on behalf of EVE, and as Fiona as well.
Thank you, Fiona. And I would like to say that for those of you who are interested in learning more about the experiences of our teachers, or now our presenters, I will call them this, They are going to write for the Africa ELTA newsletter about this experience. So you can read about the reflections and about the whole process from the beginning till there is no end, right? So till today, till the presentations. So the final thing that I would like us to do is maybe for mentors and like the presenters tonight to start their videos and have one group photo for our family together of presenters and mentors. I know I didn't tell you before, but you all look beautiful all the time. Okay, just checking. I have 2 pages.
Hadiza is always our splash of color, isn't she?
Yeah. Okay, so this is the first one.
Laura hasn't got a camera on. I don't know if that's. If we give Laura a nudge.
Okay, and let's say the second one. Okay, you all look amazing. Thank you all and have a great Saturday night. And we will continue keeping in touch, right? I love you all. Bye-bye.